what's on your mind when you say we're simplifying it or it's watered down?
Okay,
or
okay.
What do you mean?
Good point. I think when people say, oh, my OCD brain, oh, my autistic brain, and they don't mean their OCD brain, they're talking about their neat and tidy, or their autistic brain because they're like being organised. It has become such a concept creep that everything is a mental health. So it's anxiety rather than I'm worried. It's OCD rather than I like things tidy. It's do you know what I mean? And
Yes.
it's really, really detrimental to our mental health. It's really detrimental that we've normalised this, that everything is pathological. And children are growing up in this world so that they don't have a little worry, they have anxiety. And then I suppose some people who've been diagnosed feel very annoyed about that, but also you think the diagnoses aren't infallible, and the vibe from people is you'd swear it was an actual blood test, the way people go on about, I have an actual diagnosis, and it's like, well, the diagnosis depends on the practitioner, frankly.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So you're talking about the way colloquially people use like, oh, I'm so OCD, which I'm sure I've done this before too, even though I'm a mental health professional. But yeah, you're talking about the colloquial uses of these terms. And then on the other side of that, how like even if you have a legitimate diagnosis from a psychiatrist, that doesn't actually tell us that much.
It's not God talking. And doctors are as fallible as everybody else, and psychiatrists are as fallible, and the diagnosis isn't necessarily gold-plated. And I have been shocked since I've been working as a psychotherapist, the deference and respect that is given to a diagnosis. It unnerves me. I'm like, whoa, because that wouldn't be how, when you know what the criteria is for the diagnosis, you'd feel a lot less deferential about it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like people want to have a legitimized way to say like, look, I'm in pain. I have the paperwork to prove it. You know, like there's something about it there that feels really palpable. And I'm thinking too about like conversations I've had in general in therapy. And I think like, you know, for people who do feel, and this is so hard to talk about because everybody feels different, but like if you genuinely recognize that like everybody else seems to be swimming along, making do in this particular school system or this particular peer group, and for me every single step in the road feels like a huge speed bump that I don't know how to get over. I think like sometimes having a sense of like community with other people who are similar in their quirks, like it can feel comforting. And I think people can feel like I can let my guard down. You know, I don't have to explain like why I do these odd things because everybody here does these odd things. Like I can understand for sure how that is a sense of relief. But I think, you know, when I think about the problems associated with this trend of like pathologizing normal, I think there's a way that getting overly identified with labels can really hinder us. And it can kind of, you know, become a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you start reading, micro-scrutinizing all of your behavior through the lens of your label, it can prevent you from having expansive options and having flexibility, which everybody needs to have in order to function.
It's a balance, to be trite, but it is a balance. And why it's really unfortunate that people are feeling that, because when I was only talking to somebody yesterday and they said a turning point in my life was when I got when I got a diagnosis for autism. It was a turning point. It made me slot everything into place. I understood all those experiences. I kind of got myself for the first time. It was like absolutely pivotal to my understanding of myself. I've heard loads of people say different things around that, variations of that. It can be such a source of relief, such a source of, that's what's going on. Now I get it. So it definitely has a place. The problem is it slid into being a criteria, just like as all roads lead to gender, but just like gender, it can be anything. It feels like it can be anything. It feels like these kind of, we have widened our understanding of all of these diagnoses into, or all these conditions into almost anybody, not almost anybody, but there's an awful lot of people can be diagnosed with an awful lot of conditions. And that is unfortunate.